Imagine waking up every day determined to change your life. You have clear goals, silent promises made in front of the mirror, and a willpower that for brief moments feels unshakable. But then, something invisible begins to erode your strength. Quietly, without warning, a hidden enemy sabotages your will. Not through major failures, but through small concessions. And by the time you realize it, you've already lost control over yourself. It's not fate. It's not bad luck. It's habits disguised as normality that, like a gentle poison, destroy your discipline while you smile, believing you're in control. Have you ever wondered why, even knowing what you need to do, you simply don't do it? Why there's a gap between intention and action, between wanting and achieving? Stoic philosophy doesn't just ask these questions, it offers answers. Answers that don't scream, but transform. The masters of serenity, like Epictetus and Seneca, warned us, freedom belongs only to those who govern themselves. But how can you govern yourself when you're a prisoner of habits fed by distraction, haste, and subtle self-sabotage? That's where the real danger lies. What destroys your discipline doesn't come from the outside, but from the invisible choices you repeat every day without even noticing. This video is not another generic warning, it's a silent call, a kind of uncomfortable mirror that will show you what no one else talks about. The 10 daily behaviors that, disguised as harmless, destroy your consistency. And the worst part? You don't even notice. But once revealed, you can't pretend. You didn't see them. If you feel like you're always starting over, always promising this time will be different, only to get lost along the way, then yes, this content was made exactly for you. Prepare to discover how to silently eliminate the traps that prevent your true strength from emerging. There's a kind of destruction that makes no noise. It doesn't explode, it doesn't scream, it leaves no trace on the ground, but it consumes day after day the essence of what you're trying to build. It's subtle, it's silent, and it may already be corroding your discipline without your awareness. Like a dull blade cutting slowly, certain habits settle in as if they were harmless. But it's these habits that keep you from becoming who you could be. Stoicism has always warned us, the greatest enemy of man is not out there. He lives in your daily decisions. He manifests in small concessions, tolerated distractions, wasted minutes. How many times have you said you'd start tomorrow? How many times has just today turned into a routine? Instead of mastering your impulses, you serve them, and this servitude doesn't show up like chains, but in accumulated fatigue, in the guilt that arises when the day ends and you realize you've once again failed the promise you made to yourself. The Stoics taught us that true freedom is self-government. Without it, we are just leaves in the wind, reacting, postponing, justifying. Aren't you tired of being a hostage to your own mind? The truth is, discipline doesn't die all at once. It dies through small, daily deaths. A harmful habit here, an excuse there, until your willpower no longer responds. It's like a city under siege without realizing it. The walls are still standing, but inside, there's no resistance. And the most dangerous part? You keep believing everything is fine, but it's not. Time is passing, and until you look into the eyes of what's truly bringing you down, you'll keep living far below your potential. This first step requires courage. Not to change everything right now, that's an illusion, but to recognize what's corroding your inner structure. Habits that, if not eliminated in silence, will scream through your failure. That's where we begin, unmasking the hidden thieves of your discipline. The path won't be easy, but if it were, the weak would walk it too. There's a trap disguised as reward that we all fall into sooner or later: excessive comfort. What looks like rest, relief, or something you deserve is often just escape. The Stoic does not condemn rest, but questions how often it is sought, because they knew that constant relief, when undeserved, weakens the spirit. Every time you give in to ease without need, You are training your brain to believe that running from responsibility is acceptable, and that has a cost. Your willpower. Have you noticed how easy it is to bargain with your mind when you're tired? Just 5 more minutes. I'll do it later. It won't make a difference now. Seemingly harmless, these phrases are the foundation of a mediocre life. For the Stoics, this behavior was the exact opposite of virtue. They taught that we must grow stronger in adversity, resist unrestrained pleasure, and stay vigilant against the laziness of the ego. But the modern world rewards passivity. Everything is one click away. Everything promises ease, and this conditions us to give up the moment effort is required. When you surrender your routine to this logic of least resistance, you are training your mind to fail. And the cruelest part, it doesn't happen suddenly, it's gradual, invisible. It starts with a wasted morning, a skipped workout, a broken promise. Soon, what was once the exception becomes the rule. And when the real challenge arrives, you no longer have the internal structure to face it. It's not bad luck. It's lack of constant preparation, slowly diluted by small acts of concession. Discipline is built in discomfort. And any habit that keeps you too comfortable for too long is pulling you away from your potential. The Stoics knew this. That's why they trained their bodies and minds to resist what others desired, eating less than they wanted, waking up earlier than needed, ignoring external opinions, not out of pride, but because they understood that self-mastery is born when you stop seeking comfort all the time. What you call rest may be the rust that's killing your ability to resist. There is a modern prison that few are aware of: the excess of stimulation. We are surrounded by notifications, noise, and content that invades our minds without permission. And the most dangerous part? We believe it's normal, that being busy, connected, and informed means we're being productive. But to the ancient Stoic masters, that would be madness. They knew the mind needs silence to grow stronger, that without introspection, there's no direction, and that those who live distracted are living disconnected from themselves. Seneca once wrote, "No wind is favorable to one who doesn't know where they're going." Now ask yourself, how can anyone know where they're going if they can't go half an hour without checking a screen? Distractions don't just fragment your focus, they steal your presence. You drift from the now, from what matters. You fill every void with noise. And the more stimulated you are, the emptier you feel. It's a trap that consumes your clarity, your consistency, and most of all, your time. Time that will never be returned. The problem is not the phone or the technology itself. It's the addiction to avoiding silence. Because silence reveals what you've been ignoring. It shows your contradictions, your lack of direction, your true desires, and that hurts. That's why many people stay busy, not out of necessity, but out of fear of facing themselves. The Stoics knew that true strength begins with mental vigilance, and vigilance requires stillness. It requires mindfulness. When you allow anything to take your attention, you're handing over your freedom in small pieces until there's nothing left that truly belongs to you. Regaining control takes courage. Not to isolate yourself from the world, but to be in it without losing yourself, to hear your own conscience amid the noise. Eliminating this habit of constant distraction isn't easy. It's uncomfortable, even irritating, but it's necessary, because as long as you run from silence, you'll keep running from yourself. And those who run from themselves will never achieve discipline. Only exhaustion. Only a restless mind pretending to move forward. The worst kind of sabotage doesn't come from the outside. It's not the unfair boss, the algorithm, or traffic. The cruelest form of defeat is born from the stories you tell yourself, with a sweet voice and flawless logic. Today didn't work out because it was a rough day. I'll start again on Monday. I'm not in the mood, but tomorrow I will be. Stoicism doesn't tolerate this kind of internal complicity, because when you rationalize your laziness, you're feeding the most destructive part of yourself, cowardice disguised as coherence. The Stoics didn't look for excuses, they destroyed them. Epictetus said that what is outside your control doesn't deserve your concern, and what is within demands action. Simple, direct, but extremely difficult to apply when you're numb from your own justifications. Every time you postpone something you know you should do, you're training your character to fail. You're signaling to your mind that it's okay to delay, to dodge, to pretend. And over time, this no longer stays limited to your tasks. It infiltrates your identity. You start seeing yourself as someone who can't do it, wasn't born for this, or just isn't naturally disciplined. And so, a sophisticated lie is built. You begin to believe that you don't have energy, that motivation is lacking, that circumstances are to blame. But the truth is different. You're afraid to carry the weight of your own potential, because if you truly try and fail, you'll have no one left to blame. And that's terrifying. The Stoics called this the cowardice of the soul, the refusal to face what must be faced. We prefer the comfort of excuses to the discomfort of truth. And meanwhile, life keeps going. No pause, no mercy for those who self-sabotage. There comes a moment when self-deception can no longer be sustained. Either you take control of your mind, or it will continue dragging you back to where it always has. The cycle of almost changed. Almost started, almost made it, but didn't. Eliminating this silent habit of justifying inertia is the beginning of reconstruction, because true discipline only exists where there is brutal honesty with one's own actions. Everything else is a comfortable narrative, only serving to delay the inevitable, the need to transform completely. There is a moment in every person's life when everything comes down to a single gesture. Keep lying to yourself, or choose what is right, even if it hurts. This choice isn't grand or epic. It happens in silence, in the moment you look at your alarm clock and decide whether or not to get up, in the instant you're about to postpone one more task and hear that small voice say, "Not this time." It is in that moment that true men and women are forged, not when the world watches, but when no one is looking. Because Stoicism has always taught that true character is only revealed in solitude. Marcus Aurelius wrote that a man's life is what his thoughts make of it. And what have you been thinking about these past days, these past months? If your mind is filled with doubt, procrastination, and escape, then the result you're getting should come as no surprise. But there is a way out. There always is. It just won't come dressed as motivation. It will come as a burden, as a responsibility you can no longer push aside. The question is, are you ready to accept it? Or will you keep delaying, hoping that by some miracle, discipline will grow in the soil of permissiveness? Discipline is a seed that only sprouts when watered with pain. The pain of denying momentary pleasures, the pain of keeping your word to yourself when no one is watching, the pain of getting up early even when you don't feel like it. The Stoics embraced that pain with honor, because they knew it forged something greater than comfort. It forged freedom, the true freedom to say no to the world and yes to your own destiny. But that freedom comes at a price, and the price is to act, not think, decide, not plan. Face the discomfort and keep going. You already know what needs to be done. There's no more doubt, only resistance. And resistance is a clear sign you're on the right path. The mistake is to confuse difficulty with failure. In fact, that's exactly where the opportunity lies, the breaking point, the divider between your old self and who you can become. Now is not the time to seek relief. It's time to choose with firmness, with sobriety, with the clarity of someone who understands that every destructive habit only survives because you still feed it. Stop now, in silence. Before that omission devours you completely, there comes a point when there is nothing left to be said, only done. You've already listened, reflected, confronted your weaknesses. Now all that remains is silence. But not the silence of escape, the silence of rebirth. The Stoic doesn't change the world with fiery speeches, but with unbreakable actions. He doesn't need to announce his transformation. He lives it, and he lives it in the details, when he chooses to get up even when tired, when he keeps his promises even without applause, when he quiets the inner noise and acts, because true mastery is born in the invisible. You don't need to promise anyone anything. You don't need grand plans or to wait for next month. You just need to break today with the first habit that weakens you. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be firm. You need to say enough to what has drained your energy for too long. You need to cut, without ceremony, everything that feeds your stagnation. Seneca said, "While we waste time hesitating, life escapes." And life is passing. If you don't stop now to build a solid internal structure, you'll later be forced to deal with the rubble of what couldn't stand. This video is not about fleeting motivation. It's a mirror, and if you saw yourself in it, the decision has already been made, even in silence. From now on, every time you repeat a habit that destroys you, you will feel the discomfort of an awakened conscience. You'll remember that you already know, and knowing without acting is betrayal. Betrayal against yourself. That's why the Stoics valued coherence so much. For them, virtue wasn't a concept, it was practice. It was consistency between what you think, what you say, and what you do. And that alone transforms an ordinary human into someone truly invincible. Now, you have two options. Close this video and stay the same as always, or allow it to mark the silent beginning of a life that finally honors what you are capable of becoming. The discipline you seek will not come from the outside. It is born when you, alone, without an audience, do what must be done. And then, day by day, without noise, you become unshakable, because the Stoic doesn't wait for change. He is the change. Everything you've heard until now is not an accusation, it's a reminder, a subtle call to what you already knew but ignored. Deep down, every habit that destroys your discipline carries a reflection of who you became in order to survive. But now, perhaps for the first time, you've realized you no longer need to survive. You can start to live, with purpose, with presence, with mastery. It's not about perfection. It's about no longer hiding behind what kept you small. Maybe the greatest act of courage right now is not to change the world, but to silently change your own course, to cut away the excesses that numb your strength, the internal speeches that delay your transformation, and the hollow comforts that disguise your stagnation. It is in the discomfort of conscious choices that discipline is reborn. And in that rebirth, there is something sacred. You stop negotiating with your limitations and begin to honor your possibilities. The Stoic doesn't wait for applause. He rises because he must. He acts because it's right, even if no one sees. You don't need promises. You need consistency. And consistency is built in the detail, in the silent decision, in the effort no one notices. Life won't go easy on you just because you have good intentions. It respects those who walk with firmness. And perhaps today, the greatest sign of respect you can give to your own existence is to let your old self die. The one who repeats excuses, who runs from himself, who says, "It's not the right time." The right time is now, and in the silence. Where you kill those habits, your true strength will be born. You can keep waiting for things to change, or you can be the rupture that changes everything. The choice is yours alone. But know this, every transformation begins in the invisible and ends with an unshakable character. If this content stirred something in you, if something inside you was touched in an irreversible way, then act. not out of vanity, but because what transforms must be shared. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Not to be just another, but to walk alongside those who have finally decided to stop postponing their greatness.